Welcome to the Embryo Adoption Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Mellinger. On this show, we explore the possibilities embryo adoption offers to families often struggling with infertility, though not always. Through insightful interviews and moving stories, we uncover the blessings of this unique path to parenthood. This podcast is brought to you by the National Embryo Donation Center, giving hope to those longing to grow their families. Now, let's get started.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us for this edition of the Embryo Adoption Podcast. Before we get started, I just want to issue this proclamation that if you want to help this show be found by more people, there's one thing you have to do, and it's totally free, and that is give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or whatever app you listen to your podcasts on. That really helps the algorithms direct people our way. So thank you for the dozens of you who have given us those good ratings. Also review, subscribe, pass the show on. We thank you for that, and we appreciate it. So thank you for all that in advance. And now that we can get down to business, I can tell you we have an awesome show lined up for you today. This is a great story. One of our NEDC families, they have such a special relationship with their niece that she wrote an essay. She's in high school, and she wrote an essay, a very life-affirming essay about embryo adoption. We're going to talk about that today on the Embryo Adoption Podcast. It's our season finale, by the way. So hard to believe that we're in our 5th year of doing this show now. So we'll take a break for a few months. We'll be back again in January. We may have a bonus episode or something between now and then. But thank you again for making our 5th season a big success. And success is just, we're getting the word out about embryo adoption and embryo donation. And we are, more and more people are finding us. So the family I'm talking about is Karen and Brian Maxon and their 1-year-old daughter, Faith. We are recording this on Faith's birthday week. So you're going to hear from Karen, her mom, here in just a moment. The young lady I'm talking about is a freshman in high school in Minnesota. Her name is Casey Steiner. And Casey, we're going to start with you. What made you want to write an essay about this?
Well, there's an essay contest for Lutherans for Life, and it's just about the sanctity of life, and you can kind of pick any topic. And recently, obviously, this was a big part of our family, and so I just really thought it'd be a good opportunity to learn more about it, and it was really cool to write it, and I'm glad I chose that.
And by the way, the title of it is A Chance to Be Knit. We're going to read you some excerpts from the essay a little bit later on in the podcast. I also want to say that you can read the entire essay as well as other essays that were submitted to this contest. Lutherans for Life gave us a link that we have put in the podcast show notes. Officially, these essays are all property of Lutherans for Life now, which is fine. So check out the notes if you want to read some really good stuff. Karen, when did you find out that Casey was doing this?
She contacted us, I think it was either winter or last fall or so, and asked us some questions and if we'd be okay with writing it. And of course we were, and asked us some of her research questions, and we passed along your website and some resources for her to research.
Great. Well, I want to talk about the special relationship that you all have. It's a great one. I mean, Faith was conceived actually before Casey was. That's something that she brings out in her essay, which is just one of the amazing aspects of embryo adoption. But first, let's talk about your and Brian's story a little bit. Faith, tell me how you found the NEDC.
Well, I think our story for embryo adoption starts really early, because I can remember praying in like elementary school and middle school that God would give me a way to have a child that otherwise would not be born. And I can remember specifically praying about that. And it's just so interesting now, because when I was praying that, faith was already probably conceived. And so God already had the answer to that prayer lined up when I was way back in school. And so I always was very interested in life, sanctity of life things. And then I heard about embryo adoption probably around the time I was getting married. I was looking at different Christian adoption agencies and found Snowflakes, and had looked at their website. And at the time I was like, well, this is really cool. Maybe I'll put it on the back burner and we'll do it eventually. It's kind of not in our budget right now as newlyweds. And so then we went down and we were doing sort of the fertility thing. It ended up we weren't able to have children as easy as we thought. And God kind of put embryo adoption back on the table pretty quickly. And so as I was researching that, I found the NEDC, and I just loved that it was an organization that really valued the sanctity of all these embryos and saw them as human lives and the smallest image bearers of God, and really had the best interests of these children at heart. And that was really our goal as well. So we were really drawn to the NEDC. And I got to a point where I really thought embryo adoption was the choice for us. And my husband wasn't so sure yet. And so I really remembered just really feeling like, how are we going to do this? I feel like God is really directing us and has closed every other door. And I finally just decided, God knows that we can't do this unless we're both on the same page. And so I just said, God, I'm just going to give it to you. I'm going to stop worrying about it and trying to convince him. I'm just going to let it go. And you're either going to change his heart or you're going to direct us somewhere else. And that's fine. And within a week, I started hearing your voice echoing through our house because he started listening to the podcast. And so I heard him listening to as he was doing things around the house. And I was like, oh, this is looking pretty good. And then I think within 2 weeks, he was completely on board and was like, let's start the application process. So I couldn't believe how quickly God answered that prayer, because it was within 2 weeks he was completely on board.
I love hearing that story, and I also apologize because I wouldn't wish the sound of my voice echoing through anybody's house. My wife after 26 years, still tells me to keep it down. I talk too much and too loud, but I'm so glad. I'm so glad that you found us. And by the way, if you go to embryodonation.org, that's our website at the NEDC, embryodonation.org, you'll see what Karen just hit upon and what I think makes us distinct from just about any other organization out there. And that is, we center everything we do around protecting the sanctity and dignity of the human embryo. We absolutely love how we can help out the adults on both sides of the equation. We love solving the problem for embryo donors, people who've completed IVF and have these embryos remaining. They probably didn't even think about that possibility when they first entered the process, and now they sort of have this emotional, moral, ethical dilemma on their hands. That's really, really tough. We love helping those people out. We love helping people like Brian and Karen, who are having some fertility problems and are looking for ways to have children, and may have even, because of their pro-life convictions, come our way anyway. It doesn't matter. Infertility is not a prerequisite at all for the NEDC. So we love helping the adults. That's part of our joy. But who we're here for primarily, first and foremost, are those embryos. It's interesting that God put this in your heart way back when, Karen. Like, what do you think you had in mind when, back in high school?
Back then, I think I thought maybe I could help a mom who was looking at abortion as an option and being like, maybe I could adopt one of those kids from a family that's really struggling and is choosing between abortion or adoption. And then later I realized how many families are waiting for infants in the United States. And it's something like 33 families for every one infant put up for adoption. And we could still go that route eventually, but God really was not directing us down that path at the time. So I could never have imagined as a middle schooler or so that I even comprehended what embryo adoption was, especially way back in like 2005, 2010,
Yeah, it was pretty new back then too. Take us briefly then through your and Brian's journey with the NEDC. What was it like?
I mean, it was really wonderful from start to finish. Like, I can't say enough wonderful things about everyone we've met there and worked with. You made the process that could be very hard with all the paperwork and things. You made it really seamless and easy and not stressful at all, which was wonderful. I think we started the process in Thanksgiving or so of 2022. And we were able to do the home study pretty quick. We did it through Snowflakes. And once we started doing it, we went through it pretty quick. We really enjoyed all the readings and everything. We learned a lot. And then we had our initial visit in April of 2023 and our first transfer in July. And I think the first transfer for us was probably the thing that changed our embryo experience the most, because it was kind of a unique experience. I don't know if you mind if I go.
No, please share. Yeah, no, I don't mind at all. I want you to say what you want to say.
Okay. So in our first transfer, we got to the to Knoxville area a day or two early. And I remember waking up, our transfer was a Wednesday, and I woke up Tuesday morning and I had this vivid dream that Brian and I were in this room I'd never been in before. It was dark, kind of dingy. I had no idea where it was. And that we received a call from the NEDC and they said, "We're so sorry, but all of your embryos did not survive thawing." And they said, "You need to pick embryos right now." And we were standing there and we pulled out our phones because we had this whole spreadsheet where we had kind of looked at all the different profiles. And for some reason, we didn't have our computers with us, and we pulled it up and we were trying to choose embryos right then. And I remember waking up that Tuesday morning and feeling just devastated that they're all gone and what's happened. And I just was like, nope, it was just a dream. Thank goodness, it's all fine. And then we ended up going to this little tourist site downtown that was this old fort or whatever downtown somewhere. And we walk in the first building. There's no one else there. We're the only tourists at this place that day. And we're in this old building alone. And my phone rings and I look down and it's the NEDC. And I know exactly how this is going to go, right? So I answer it and they're like, "We're so sorry. This never happens, but only one of your embryos survived and you need to pick new ones immediately so we can continue the process." And I was just, we went through and we chose new ones and continued the process. But it was definitely a moment where I'd never had that experience before, and there we are and looking on our phones and figuring it out. So, and then unfortunately that transfer was not successful, which was, I think, the hardest part of the whole experience for us was that loss of those embryos.
And I'm by the way,
Yeah.
I just want to say, Karen, I'm glad that you're bringing this up. It's important to camp out on this. We never want to, in any of our messaging, and certainly not in this podcast, give people the idea that embryo adoption is a rose-colored journey, that everything is just whatever, butterflies and starbursts, and it'll all be great. We try to be positive because it's a positive thing, but honest. This was, and so you're giving people a very valuable window into that. This was hard. This was emotional. This isn't something you just skip over to the happy part.
No. Yeah. That was definitely the hardest part, but we really now coming out the other side have seen that God used that and really taught us two very important things through that experience. The first being that it really showed me that we would love these children the same as we would our biological children. When we went through the process, I always had this fear, and I even talked to our home study person about it, of what if I just don't connect, or what if it's just different, and what if it's just not, it just doesn't feel right, or all that. And then when we lost them, we had a biological miscarriage before, and the pain was exactly the same, only it was amplified because this time we'd lost 3 at once instead of 1 child. And so it showed us that they're exactly the same, and our love for them isn't different based on how they were brought into our family. And then the second thing for us is that it really changed our perspective on embryo adoption, because like you said, before we came and we loved these children and we expected to have them with us and they would grow up in our family. And it really showed us that not necessarily the case, but that doesn't change the value of their embryo adoption. No one is promised that they're going to get to see their kid graduate high school or turn 5 or even hold them when they're born. None of us are guaranteed that. And so it changed our mindset from we're doing this because we want to raise these children to we're doing this because we're going to love these children and parent them as long as God gives them on earth. And if that's only 2 weeks in the womb, then we will love them and parent them for those 2 weeks. And we really sat down and we were like, if we do 3 or 4 transfers and we have 12 children in heaven, that's still a great purpose because these children were given the respect and the dignity they deserved. They were given a family. They were allowed to live with a family and have as natural of a life as we could have given them and felt that love. They didn't just live and die in a lab and then were thrown in the trash. They were given the best chance that we could give them. And so it really changed our mindset to on parenting too, just that we parent and we love them for as long as God gives them here on earth.
And the other thing you realize as a parent is at least as a Christian parent, they're not your children. And I don't mean that to come off as cold and harsh as it sounds at first blush. Of course, there's a sense in which they're your children, right? I mean, absolutely. No. But ultimately, I'm just echoing your point. These are God's children. He is giving us the ability and privilege to steward and care for these tiny lives and prepare to launch them out into the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when I talk to people about them, I so often say, for me, being pregnant for 2 weeks with them, that's like a dot on my life. It's such a small thing. It doesn't feel like it matters. But for those children, that was their whole world and that was their whole life. And that matters for them. And it's kind of an invisible thing from this side of eternity. But I know for them, that was their entire time on earth. And so that's worth so much. And we're so thankful we have faith and that our second transfer is successful. But it's successful regardless because we got to bring these children home and give them a family.
So well said. And so let me ask you, and because I don't know, I haven't checked the chart. The new set of embryos that you chose for your first transfer, did Faith come from that set?
She actually did not. Okay. So that set, we transferred 2 of them. In our first transfer, there was 1 left, and that one did not survive thawing for our second transfer. We named him Solomon. So he did not make it, unfortunately. And so then we had to choose more embryos, and Faith's set was one that we chose in that.
So before we bring Casey back in here, just tell me what it was like being able to have a full pregnancy, give birth. I'm always interested in that moment. It's one of the most memorable moments of your life. You don't forget it when your children are born.
No, I had such a wonderful pregnancy, really all the way through. You never know what's going to be or what you're going to expect. But really, for me, it was a really smooth pregnancy and everything went well. And we had a very long labor of 39 hours and I got to push for 7 hours straight. And then at that point, they said she hasn't moved too much. Maybe we should do a C-section. So, that was a little long, but honestly, I loved being pregnant. I loved every part of it, which I know is not true for every woman. So I feel very blessed that it took a long time to get her here, but we had a very smooth pregnancy. And so that was great.
I love it. I want to bring Casey back in here and talk more about this essay called "A Chance to Be Knit" that you completed and won first place in the competition for. She says in this essay that embryo donation, is the right choice and the only choice. I want to read a couple excerpts of what you wrote, Casey, who, by the way, just finished her freshman year. So pretty precocious essay for somebody who's just a freshman in high school, sophomore now. You wrote in here in one excerpt, "I have a special relationship with her," speaking about your cousin Faith, "because I was chosen to be her godmother. And while she was born most recently, she has been alive longer than I have as the quote oldest cousin. Faith was conceived in 2005. God has been with his daughter for 20 years, waiting to form her inside my aunt, and now as she grows and learns. Say a little more about that. I mean, what's going through your heart as you research and write excerpts like that?
Well, I mean, I just I don't think it really sunk in for me that she was actually like older than me until I was writing the essay, and then I was like, man, this is just amazing. Like, God has worked so much in our family's lives, and that he has always had this plan for her. Like, she was going to be our little cousin, and she was always a part of our family. It's just like even longer than I've been alive. Like, she was always there, always part of our family, and now we actually get to have her, and it's just really amazing.
What's it like when you get, and I know you have a fairly large extended family, but and like you mentioned, you're the oldest cousin. What's it like though when you see your aunt and uncle and are able to get together with your smallest cousin now?
It's so fun. I love our family, and it just every time we get to be together, it's amazing. I got to be with Faith twice. So shortly after she was born last summer, and then for Christmas, and now just in a couple of days I get to see her again. So that's fun, and it's just really special. I love getting to hold her and know that I'm a part of her life, and that um, we're all just a family. And every cousin we all have a really good relationship, and I think our family is just really blessed.
I want to read another excerpt from your essay, and then you just comment on it again a little bit, like you did a moment ago. And this was like the big finish of the essay. This is where you were really driving it home, and I love this part because this is why those of us at the NEDC are in this work. Okay, I'll put on my old man glasses so I can read it right. It is the weakest who need the most protection. Embryos have no say in how long they are frozen, whose womb they may be allowed to grow in, or if they are just thrown away. Faith and thousands of others have been saved because people spoke up for them. We must support embryo adoption because we know everyone, including each embryo, is fearfully and wonderfully made. That came from the heart.
Yeah. So I just so the theme verse for the contest was Psalm 139, which is actually really cool because that's one of the most well known. It's so easy to use because it's just it it's so true. Like, God chose all of us, even if we aren't Christians, but uh luckily I know most families who use embryo adoption and donation are, and that's the blessing of it, is that these embryos weren't like guaranteed life. They are just frozen. They can't do anything about it. But with embryo adoption, we and donation, we all give them the opportunity to have that life in a Christian home and family, and get to live the life that God designed for them.
Well, let me salute you. You did a great job on that essay. I've read it a few times, and you really glorified God and did a great job standing up for those who can't stand up for themselves. What sort of a reaction have you gotten to it?
I've got a lot of people just telling me that I did a good job and that it was a good essay. Um, I have an awesome community at church and school, and so everybody is very supportive of it. They just know, I think they all know how it's a good cause. I don't think a lot of people really knew about embryo adoption. So when I was telling people that I was writing it, they were very intrigued. They're like, wow, that is amazing. And especially when I tell people about how she's like kind of older than me, they're like, that is so cool. And that's just like, it's hard for people to comprehend at first, And so I think this was a good opportunity, and now it's out like for the world to see. So yeah.
Well, that's exactly it. You are making a difference. You are opening eyes for people to embryo adoption. There are people who have read this essay, you've just said it, and I had no doubt, who have really no idea about this and who knows what kind of seed God is planting there. So, wow, really well done. Karen, what were your thoughts when you first saw the result of your niece's work?
I mean, we were just blown away by how beautifully she was able to articulate everything and write the story and write it for Faith. And we were just completely overwhelmed by just what a wonderful job she did. And we've been praying that God will use it and her voice to help people find embryo adoption and to help other embryos be saved and to live a full life as children of God. And we're glad that you've invited us to do this podcast because that's one way God can use it. And we're hoping people will visit the website and share her essay as well, and hope that helps more children and more families to find embryo adoption.
And again, you can find the link from Lutherans for Life in the show notes of this podcast. Definitely do check it out. And we salute Lutherans for Life for holding a contest like this. It is wonderful. It's truly fueling the good and the beautiful, and we love to see that. I want to ask you, Karen, a couple things before we go. First of all, describe Faith. What kind of a young lady is she at 1 year old?
Oh, she is just full of energy and completely just bubbling and just you can just tell she loves life so much. Brian and I are both pretty introverted, and she is like full extrovert, and loves people, loves being around everyone. I mean, she sleeps very well at night, which we're so blessed with, even from like 5 weeks old, but she is up during the day, and she can go like, even at 1, she can go 7 hours without a nap, and she just is happy the whole time, experiencing the world, and just is just so full of just joy every day. So it's just been wonderful to watch her grow. And now she's almost walking. And so it's just amazing, really.
Oh man, get ready. When she can walk, she's going to be burning up the carpet at your house.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Get ready.
She already crawls faster than one of our friends who's the same age, and he's walking, but she crawls way faster than he can walk already. So we know that once she's walking, she's just going to run.
Yeah, right. Maybe that she's reversing the you got to learn to crawl before you learn to walk. Maybe walking and crawling is actually the better order if you're going for speed. Yeah, and to tell you how much of an introvert Brian is, he's a wonderful guy, one of the most gracious guys you'll meet, but he's like, I'm not sure I want to go on the podcast. Karen, you can do that. That's a true introvert. And I being married to an introvert, I completely respect that. He's a great guy though, and we're so happy for him. Let's wrap it up this way, Karen. Any advice that you would want to pass along to somebody who's listening to this and is prayerfully, thoughtfully considering embryo adoption?
Well, probably there's two things. I don't think we mentioned that Faith is a closed adoption, and the NEDC gets to pick that, and we love that families are given both options. For us, we realized that the embryos that are closed, it wasn't like we were making that choice for those embryos. Their biological families had made the choice that they felt most comfortable with when donating with them. And so for us, we felt like giving those embryos a chance, that we knew they were going to come in with this extra challenge maybe of not being able to know their biological families the way they might want to, or we would wish them to. But we just felt like that was something we could parent through. And we also had some nieces and nephews in our family who have different adoptions and different open and closed relationships. So we knew our children would grow up with cousins that were going through similar things, which we thought might be a support to them. So I know I'm just to consider both and to see what you feel like is the best fit for your family, because the closed embryos need a home and a family just as much as the open ones do, and they're waiting just as much. And then I think a second, just to open your heart to it and see what God's going to do, because we couldn't have imagined how God would bless our family when we started down this process. And now we're so glad we did it. And we've just become so passionate about embryo adoption and telling people about it. And for us, we don't regret not having biological children at all. We're just so excited to be able to continue to try to give life to as many children as we can and are financially and physically able to do. So just it can bless you in ways you can't even begin to imagine.
Well said. EmbryoDonation.org, by the way, if you want to find out more information about the NEDC program. And I want to thank you both, Karen and Casey, for giving us such a great season 5 finale to wrap up this particular group of Embryo Adoption Podcast episodes on. It's inspiring. It's a wonderful story. And you're both just excellent spokespeople for the cause. We're so happy for how God's worked in both your lives. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Embryo Adoption Podcast. I hope you enjoyed learning more about this life-changing option for building a family. Hey, if you or someone you know could benefit from embryo adoption or donation, visit embryodonation.org to get started or just to find out more. Again, that's embryodonation.org. And don't forget to spread the word, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast app. Join me next time as we continue sharing inspirational stories of the embryo adoption journey. And until then, take care.